STU Journalism and the New Brunswick Beacon present the STU Basement Tapes with Haley Ryan and Viola Pruss.
Hi everyone, I'm Haley Ryan.
And I'm Viola Pruss.
Welcome to the final edition of the STU Basement Tapes.
We're here at the set of CBC New Brunswick where some of our aspiring journalists hope to work someday.
We also have some special friends from the STU Jazz Ensemble. Our top stories are: the largest building project in Fredericton's history is complete,
Part sellers and their wedding to-do list.
and a look at tattoo culture.
But first, food. Looking at food issues here in Norway, it's no secret that food prices are going up. But as Maria Akle tells us, the food crisis is hitting not just in Fredericton, but everywhere.
Kayla Brinston only buys food that's on sale. She's a St. Thomas University student. She lives in an apartment with 2 other students. Last month, Kayla wasn't able to buy everything she needed in her grocery list.
It's getting really hard. I'm scared I won't have enough money to pay my bills and buy my food as well.
New Brunswickers have started to see increases in the prices of cooking oil, breads, meats, and fresh produce. Many New Brunswick food banks are worried rising food prices will make it difficult to feed people. Yet, Chris Fauger, food distribution manager at the Fredericton Food Bank, says so far they haven't seen a lack in donations. However, he has noticed new people coming in.
In March, we had 61 brand new families that had never had to use a food bank before. And we had 950 families, which is up, it's up a little bit from last year at the same time. But the bread is...
Fauger says the amount of people using the food bank services will increase with time.
Every time that there's a price increase, especially now, a lot of the price increases on things that are just basics like flour and sugar and pasta and rice. Everything's up, and whenever you see that wages don't go up, social assistance rates don't go up, the income doesn't go up to match the increase in the food. So I think we're going to see more people have to rely on the different agencies.
While some struggle in our province, the situation is worse in developing countries around the world. These prices are pushing millions below the poverty line. In some cases, they helped spark protests around the world, such as those in Tunisia and Egypt. Dr. Susan Macomb, Canada Research Chair in Rural Social Justice, says food prices are affected by oil prices.
And so as oil prices increase, so too do bread, like wheat prices, bread prices, and then that becomes a scarcer, more expensive commodity, so then that puts up the demand for rice, and then the rice prices go up, so it becomes a kind of a cyclical process where there's more and more things that are attached.
Economists say overall prices will increase by 3 to 8% before the end of the year here in Canada. However, the issue is alarming in poorer countries. World Bank President Robert Zoellick says that we need global action to turn things around. Otherwise, he estimates 9 billion people will fall into poverty by 2050. For STU Journalism, I'm Maria Akle.
Fish is a staple in Japanese diets, and that country may soon be relying more on Canadian suppliers. But how well are New Brunswick fisheries doing? Viola Pruss took the ferry to Deer Island to get some insights on one fisherman and his wife.
Life on Deer Island is changing. It is one of thousands of islands between the US and Canadian mainland. 1,000 people live here. Most of them are employed in the fish and seafood industry, some in tourism. Garnet Green has pulled lobster from the sea for 53 years.
We'd leave Sunday night, 12 o'clock. Just 2 of us aboard the boat, not 3, which make it 2 of us. And we'd fish right around the clock, 24 hours a day.
Yeah, that was the first big one I had there, yeah.
The 66-year-old fisherman from Deer Island moved here in 1941. His family has been in the business for more than 3 generations. Garnet first planned to retire at 55, but the sea always draws him back.
So I went to 60, and I got there, and she said, "You gonna retire now?" And I said, "I don't know what I do. I think I go nuts." So I went to 65, and the same thing happened. So I don't know when there's going to be an end.
His wife Glenda is married to him for 40 years. The first 15 of these years, she says they barely knew one another.
When we were first married, he was away all the time. So I had to take care of the children, do all the book work, take care of the house, and then I worked, after my children got in school, I worked while he would call, there's a part broke down on the boat.
While life with a fisherman isn't always easy, Glenda doubts Garnet will retire soon. After all the years, she says, he would be lost without a hobby.
One gentleman lived across the street here, used to tell me that when the lobsters were all gone, Garnet would put a boat in our front yard and haul plastic lobsters.
But Garnet says the fishing industry is changing. A couple of years ago, people on Deer Island fished for various seafood and fish. Now they specialize in one kind, drawing unemployment in the seasons in between. At the same time, a lot of weirs have closed, and fish like herring and catfish have become scarce.
Because if something happened to the lobsters here in southwest Nova, in the Bay of Fundy, in this area here, it would be the biggest welfare state in the big area, because the lobster is sustaining and keeping a lot of things going.
I'm at Richardson Harbour, where the first salmon farm in Atlantic Canada was established. Recent government figures show that Canadian fish and seafood exports grew by more than 7% in 2010. The United States remains the #1 buyer, with the European Union and Japan following second. Canada's most valuable fish and seafood exports include lobster, salmon, herring, snow crab, and shrimp. The current situation in Japan could help the economy in small fishing communities like this. However, Garnet Green says that the future for local fisheries on Deer Island is uncertain.
With prices rising and less fish in the sea, the industry has a hard time keeping up with the costs. More people leave to find jobs on the mainland. Garlet's son and daughter still work in the lobster and salmon industry, but their children do not care about the business.
Now, my young fella don't bring his boy aboard the boat with us because, he don't want him to go through what we've been doing. And maybe it's better, 8 to 5 job and get to work somewhere and have some benefits.
Many of these houses stand empty today. Stores and churches have closed. But while life has grown quiet, Garnet says he still enjoyed every minute of it. For STU Journalism, Viola Prost, Deer Island.
It's good to have you back, Viola. How was the ferry ride?
Definitely a great experience.
Even though the crisis in Japan may be benefiting Canadian exporters, it's making things more dangerous for those eating foods imported from Japan. Radiation has been detected in spinach and milk coming from Japan. Amy McKenzie tells us why this is dangerous for Canadians.
Amy, how likely is it that food with radiation will make it into our stores?
Not likely at all, Viola. Canada has not imported any food from Japan since the earthquake. Canada already has very strict rules for accepting imported food. In regards to Japan, it has tightened those restrictions considerably.
What are the restrictions that Canada has placed on the imports exactly?
Well, this process has yet to allow any food into Canada. But first, Japanese officials in Japan scan the food for radiation. After that, Canadian officials in Japan take a look at the food, and then if it gets into Canada, it's inspected there as well.
What about food grown here? Is there any risk of radiation from Japan affecting our national production?
Scientists at Simon Fraser University have been testing the rainwater and seaweed in BC. They found small amounts of radiation that they are certain came from Japan. However, both the scientists and Health Canada are saying that the amount is small enough that it doesn't pose a health risk for Canadians. As well, the type of radiation found is the less harmful of the two that was released by the Fukushima nuclear power plant. This type has a half-life of 8 days. That means that after 16 days, anything affected by it will no longer be affected. The one to be concerned about has a half-life of 30 years, but this type has not been detected in Canada.
What if the worst-case scenario happens and the nuclear power plant has a total meltdown?
The Canadian scientists say that even in that worst-case scenario, the radioactive particles would dilute enough on its trip across the ocean that it wouldn't pose any serious health risks to Canadians.
Thank you, Amy. The Canadian Food and Health Inspection Agency is constantly monitoring the situation. You can follow them under their website below. It's not just the economy that's stressed, students are too. Major assignments are due and final exams are coming up, causing many students to stress eat. Jennifer Bishop has more on the story.
At
Legg is not only a musician, he is a political science major at UNB who graduates this year. He only has a few weeks to get all of his work finished. This means eating badly.
I find that I tend to eat poorly because I don't have time to actually eat, and I just grab a lot of quick things that aren't really good for me.
Legg is not alone. In the George Martin cafeteria at St. Thomas University, students pick things like fries and burgers, whatever they can get in a hurry.
Research shows that when our stress levels rise, it not only affects our mental health, but also our physical health. We turn to behaviors like smoking, drug use, and excessive eating, which only makes things worse.
UNB therapist Dr. Rice Fuller says that there are ways students can deal with and relieve their stress.
The most important things that students can do is to ensure that they get adequate sleep, good nutrition. I would say, good exercise as well, and some time for relaxation.
Dr. Fuller also says that neglecting to do any of these things could affect the others. For example, if you eat too much before bed, you probably won't sleep well. For STU Journalism, I'm Jen Bishop.
Are you going to be watching the royal wedding? It's coming up later this month.
Maybe. There's certainly a lot of excitement. What's interesting, though, one of the topics most covered is the bride's weight. As Michelle Toomey tells us, this concerns many professionals who treat young people with eating disorders.
Last October, Prince William proposed to Kate Middleton. Middleton has admitted she wants to drop 5 pounds before her wedding at the end of this month. This has become a common practice among brides.
But yeah, I do believe that there's definitely, because she's going to marry into a royal family, that there's the comparison to, royal families all over the world. And, how good or not other brides have looked.
Michelle Barclay is in the beginning stages of planning her own wedding. She hasn't set a date yet, but she's already feeling the pressure to tone up and be thin. It's a pressure she knows all too well. She was a gymnast for more than 10 years.
I was a gymnast, so it was always, not so much peer pressure, but everybody around you tries to, be fit, look fit. It's a sport, so the heavier you are, the more difficult it is to perform.
Since she gave up gymnastics, Michelle is at a healthy weight for the first time in her adult life.
But it was just too much. The girls that I would have been training with, they got weighed every day before practice. They got punished for losing a pound, for gaining a pound.
Statistics show that Michelle is among a growing number of women who suffer from eating disorders. In a 2002 government study, 1.5% of young women have an eating disorder. Eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia are significantly more common in women than in men. Kathleen Pye is one of many professionals at the University of New Brunswick who help students with eating disorders. She says the problem is alarming.
Eating disorders have the highest mortality rate among psychiatric disorders, so it definitely has very, very serious consequences to it.
She helps run a support group called It's Not About Food. She also holds a walk-in clinic in this same building. Pye says friends and family can help too.
It's important for them to be supportive, to offer, as much support and no judgment as possible, because obviously people who are hiding it feel that, if they were to disclose it, people would think of them differently.
Pye and her colleagues are also doing a study on eating disorders among university students. The hope is that it will lead to other forms of support. So far, 80 students from UNB and STU who say they have eating disorders have offered to take part.
The late Princess Diana suffered from bulimia. She was one of the first high-profile women to talk openly about it. It is a reminder of how difficult it can be for even the rich and famous to live happily ever after in a society that places so much emphasis on women being thin. For STU Journalism, I'm Michelle Toomey.
Coming up after the break, we have a whole sports section. Welcome back. Now for something a little more hard-hitting, literally.
The sporting world has watched players suffer from concussions at a more alarming rate. But what about athletes that play in front of 200 people instead of 20,000? Sean O'Neill tells us that the damage can be the same.
Campbell wins it clear to the far side of the zone.
Concussions have become sport's biggest headache, and it will take more than extra-strength Tylenol for it to go away. An estimated 127 NFL football players were diagnosed with head injuries or concussions last season. That's almost 8 players per week. In hockey, 24 NHL players, including Sidney Crosby, are currently sidelined indefinitely with concussions. While TV audiences are seeing the ramifications for professional athletes, there are those who feel the effects away from the spotlight. Jeremy Swan is a 20-year-old student at St. Thomas. He estimates that he's had 5 concussions playing sports. He got his first when he was in grade 12 while skiing.
I turned too sharply and hit my head off a tree, which knocked me unconscious, and the single trail linked to the main trail that my family was on. So I came out of the woods unconscious, dragging the snow. My family had to chase me down the hill.
After that incident, Swan took a few Advils and kept skiing. He has since suffered more concussions playing hockey, football, and rugby. His last concussion playing rugby left him with a feeling the others didn't.
I just got the typical concussion symptoms, like a quick black flash and some stars. But I just got up, kept playing, although I felt kind of like dazed and confused.
While head injuries have not stopped Swan from leaving contact sports, they've forced Andrew Hubbard to walk away from the game he loves. The 22-year-old Fredericton native played football at St. FX before transferring to UNB. He decided he would quit football if he got concussed again during the 2010 season. And that's when he got his 5th concussion.
The next thing I know, the trainer's waving fingers in my face and asking me what day it is. I really didn't know what was going on. I was confused. Initially, I thought it was March.
As hard as it was for Hubbard, he decided he had to leave the game to focus on his kinesiology studies.
I miss it, but right now I want to pursue some academic goals. I just think that it's better off for me to stay out of contact football for my head's sake.
The reason concussions have become the hot-button issue in sports is because they've proven to be deadly. Repeated concussions can lead to a progressive brain disease called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE for short. Its symptoms include dementia, depression, and Parkinson's disease.
Autopsies of numerous deceased athletes' brains have found CTE. NFL Hall of Famer Mike Webster, number 52, suffered from depression, amnesia, and dementia after retiring. He died at the age of 50 in 2002. Pro wrestler Chris Benoit was 40 years old when he killed his wife and son before committing suicide. According to one health expert, Benoit's brain resembled that of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. Former hockey tough guy Bob Probert died of a heart attack at 45, but his brain also had CTE. And at only 26 years of age, former wide receiver Chris Henry was diagnosed with CTE after his death in a car accident.
In a country with a passion for hockey as strong as Canada's, the debate is now reopened on when we should allow children to begin hitting in minor hockey. A recent University of Calgary study has shown that concussion rates in Alberta, where checking begins at 11, is more than triple that of Quebec, where checking begins at 13. Now, numerous information and interview requests with Hockey New Brunswick went unreturned, but Hockey Canada President Bob Nicholson has stated that he wants to implement a zero-tolerance hit-to-the-head rule at the annual meetings in May. For STU Journalism, I'm Sean O'Neill.
Last week, one of the largest construction projects on campus was finished. If you travel through the city, you can't miss the Richard J. Curry Center, started nearly 3 years ago. Shane McGee joins us from the center now to tell us more. What will the building be used for, Shane?
Haley, the building you see behind me will house the UNB basketball and volleyball teams. In May, UNB will have its graduation ceremonies inside. Also happening in May, Congress 2011 will use the building for some of its events. The Human Performance Lab and university offices will also be inside. Now, the Human Performance Lab is the only one of its kind in Canada.
That's interesting, Shane. Can you tell me a little more about this lab?
Sure, Haley. It will use state-of-the-art motion capture technology to do a few different things. Help estimate joint loads on people living with physical disorders, identify abnormal muscle patterns in children living with disorders, examine strategies to maintain balance in elderly adults, provide research on workplace injuries and rehabilitation, and offer fatigue and performance analysis to athletes and military personnel.
We know the building is already behind schedule. Will it be ready next month?
Well, Haley, last week facility operations staff, campus recreation, and staff and researchers with the Human Performance Lab started moving into their new offices inside the building. But it won't be until September until the building is fully operational. And even though you can't see it behind me, there is still some work to be done on the outside of the building.
Thanks for the update, Shane.
Exciting news for Fredericton hockey fans. Local player Zach Phillips is expected to be drafted into the National Hockey League in June. Carissa Donkin tells us what hockey families have to give up for their sons and daughters' success.
Playing in the NHL would be a dream come true for Zach Phillips. The 18-year-old St. John Sea Dogs player is driven to be the best. Zach left home to play hockey at prep school in the United States when he was 13. It wasn't easy for him to leave home.
You know, you're accountable for being on time everywhere yourself. No one pushing you to be there. Laundry and taking care of being at meals and stuff like that was definitely different for a 13-year-old kid to be 8 hours away than it is here.
Zach knows the move was something he had to do.
Yeah, it's tough, but make decisions, I guess. If you want something bad enough, make sacrifices and things like that for it. So.
The move was equally hard on Lacey, his 17-year-old sister.
Probably the hardest part was just not having someone around all the time. Because before, like, I remember when we were really young, I remember laying about with him on Christmas Eve and him already knowing that Santa Claus wasn't real, but still pretending for me. And it was just different to have him gone and not have that companion all the time. But it worked out.
The Phillips family has only taken one vacation, and Zach has missed many holidays because of hockey. But Zach's father, Eric, says this is common for hockey families.
So there's a lot of missed opportunities in terms of vacations and holidays, but it's all part of it. I mean, we as a family, we've bought into it and we make up for it in other ways. I mean, that's not untypical of a Canadian hockey family, I don't think.
For the Phillips family, the sacrifices are worth it because Zach is doing what he loves.
Well, I can tell you now, it's all been worth it. It's all been worth it. Every time I see him, he calls me, he's excited about a practice, or he calls me, he's excited about a game. It's all been worth it. You know, when he was in prep school, he'd call me on a Friday night and, you know, be at the library or be at a Red Sox game, you know. Whatever he's doing, it's all been worth it. It's been a lot of win-wins for hockey for him.
The icing on the cake for the Phillips family would be to hear Zach's name called at the NHL draft on June 24th.
As a kid, Zach Phillips lived out his hockey dreams here at the Aiken Centre in Fredericton. Zach spent many hours here perfecting his hockey skills and dreaming about the NHL. Every week, parents like Eric Phillips dot the stands of the Aiken Centre. They cheer for their kids when they score goals, and they comfort them when they lose games. For those parents, the early morning practices, the cold rinks, and all of the other sacrifices are worth it. For STU Journalism, I'm Carissa Donkin.
In other hockey news, the University of New Brunswick just hosted the University Cup Men's Championship. Alex Wiedinghoff is at the Aitken Centre with the news on the winning team. Alex?
Well, Viola, the UNB Varsity Reds hosted and won this year's University Cup in the CIS Men's Hockey Championship. This is their 4th win overall in the championships. This is their 3rd win in the last 5 years. They beat out McGill 4-0 in the finals here at the Aiken Centre. The event was sold out. Over 3,700 fans showed up. And Viola, it was an exciting game. In the first period, Luke Gallant scored UNB's first goal 10 minutes into the game. Dane Todd scored goal number 2 just 14 minutes into the second period. And in the last period, Matt Filler scored 4 minutes in, and Dane Todd scored the final goal with just 9 minutes left on the clock. Luke Gallant won the University Cup MVP and Player of the Game with 1 goal and 2 assists in the match. And one of UNB's graduating players, 25-year-old Hunter Tremblay, has signed a 1-year, 2-way contract with the Edmonton Oilers. He is the only player in Canada to average over 2 points per game. Viola?
After the break, we're looking at New Brunswick budget and crazy weddings. New Brunswick filmmakers are ready to take action after the provincial budget cut out the film tax credit. Some filmmakers may even move out of the province.
Alana Duffy is down at the New Brunswick Film Co-op to give us some more details. Alana, how is this cut going to affect New Brunswick filmmakers?
Haley, New Brunswick is going to feel the effects of these cuts.
Several filmmakers have already said to the press that they plan on moving out of the province with the decision of the New Brunswick government to cut the film tax credit. Moncton's Frank Savoy says that he plans to move his company, Connections Productions, to Nova Scotia, where he can receive government support. He will only take 1 out of his 9 staff members to Nova Scotia with him, so that means job losses in New Brunswick as well as a result of this cut.
Has the government said anything about reversing this decision?
Filmmakers and their supporters held a protest outside of the legislature last Thursday. They chanted, "Save our films," and held signs that warned the government of the cut's consequences. But the New Brunswick government said it still plans to go ahead with the cut, saying that there are other ways for filmmakers to fund their projects.
Exactly how much money has been cut out of the budget?
Last year, the New Brunswick government set aside $2.7 million for the film tax credit. The money from that was used to help filmmakers pay some of the salaries to their workers who were from New Brunswick. Finance Minister Blaine Higgs says the decision to cut film tax credits and other services like it are essential to get New Brunswick out of debt. But now, New Brunswick will be the only province who does not have a film tax credit or any help for their filmmakers.
Thanks, Alana. Now, something to celebrate. It's been a 3-year wait, and last Friday, the doors to Fredericton's newest liquor store were opened. Laura Brown was there.
It's a celebration. Almost 100 people were into the new York Street liquor store in the first hour. The liquor store is attached to the York Street train station. J.D. Irving Limited owns the historic property. They're renting it to MB Liquor. MB Liquor is turning this half of the station into a specialty events kitchen. It's expected to open before the end of the summer. Nora Lacey is a spokesperson for MB Liquor. She says the reviews are in.
Well, you know, the train station sat for so long in sort of a dilapidated state. So we've had nothing but positive feedback from the community in terms of our participation in re-energizing the complex and creating a complex here in downtown Fredericton.
The new liquor store is over 1,000 square meters. That's more than double the size of the Smythe Street location, which is now closed. The operating hours will be from 10 to 9 Mondays to Saturdays and 12 to 5 on Sundays. This new liquor store carries 1,700 products. That's double the amount of products the Smythe Street store could handle, which means twice the selection. The train station has been empty since 1993. It's been a complex process, one that involved agreements between the property's owners, J.D. Irving Limited, MB Liquor, and the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada, the federal body that had to approve any changes made to the nationally protected site.
There are a lot of key stakeholders that were very concerned about what would happen to the former train station and what kind of development would be here in downtown Fredericton, and we're extremely proud to be part of it.
For STU Journalism, I'm Laura Brown.
This new liquor store will make it convenient for many newlyweds to pick out the wine for their special day. It's almost wedding season, and Lauren Bird tells us about the increasing pressure on today's brides.
You wake up the next day and it's...
You're so tired, like you're so ramped up, and then all of a sudden after, it's just
the
so...
two of you.
Yeah, it's just 2 of us, and everybody's gone back home from the wedding, and it's like, okay, well, I guess we carry on from here.
A wedding. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times. We've all heard of the Bridezilla and the dangerous to-do list. What's being called the wedding of the decade has merchandisers in Britain selling everything from commemorative plates to refrigerators covered with the happy couple's faces. Jenny and Dean Gillis are newlyweds. They got married 5 months ago and talked about the struggles that come with attaining a happily ever after.
When the time comes and all of a sudden you have to start making decisions and getting things down on paper and finalizing things, like it's overwhelming.
Jenny says the key is organization.
Your cake. So this is the binder that we had for all of our ideas, to keep track of our receipts, to keep track of our budget, anything that we were working on with the people that were doing our invitations and the lady that was doing our cake and our decorations.
Kim Gowan is the events coordinator at the Crown Plaza Hotel. She works with brides all the time.
Sometimes I hear more from the parents than from the people that are actually getting married. You know, it's almost like they're living vicariously through their children. So.
A typical wedding day takes 250 hours to plan. But wedding planner Charlotte Burho advises against planning more than 1 year in advance.
issue with planning out that far is that you have a lot of time to change your mind and to second guess your decisions. And every time you change your mind, it's going to cost you money.
The average cost of a wedding in Canada is between $20,000 and $30,000. That cost has risen $1,000 each year since 2007. With 27 being the average age of couples getting married, most couples are paying for this themselves. For STU Journalism, I'm Lauren Bird. The Eat Local movement is continuing to grow, and even here in Fredericton, their science is catching on. The latest is the opening of Fredericton's first organic, all-vegetarian cafe. Alex Kress has the story.
Nirvana Wellness Center is a blend of natural ingredients for healthy living. It's part yoga studio, and it's part what's called a resto juice bar. It's Fredericton's only organic, all-vegetarian spot. Jonas Coulter opened his dream business a few weeks ago. He's pleased to be taking part in the local food movement.
It makes me happy that there's change happening, provincially, nationally, internationally.
He always hoped to open a bar or a restaurant, but adding yoga and organic food to the mix came after a terrible car accident 6 years ago. One of his friends died in the crash, and he suffered a badly broken leg. He spent a month in the hospital, but it took him a year to walk again. Once he was on his feet, his back wasn't aligned, so he was told to fix it with yoga.
Kind of being in the hospital and almost dying, I wanted to be as healthy as possible. And I ate a little bit organically and healthily, but I decided that I would do everything in my power. I wanted to be me again. I wanted to be back.
Mary Dan Johnston is a vegetarian visiting Nirvana for the first time. Jonas had people like her in mind when he opened it. There are many vegetarian options on menus around the city, but most aren't high in nutrients.
Maybe I'll try this special that you're talking about. If I could get the falafel and the cream of asparagus soup, please. That would be great. Falafels are notoriously really messy to eat, so don't think I'm a huge slob. That's really good. It is challenging, especially I was vegan for a year, so trying to find a place to eat in Fredericton where you can get something that's tasty, that isn't French fries, that has no milk or dairy products or eggs or cheese, or it's pretty challenging. So it's really nice that there's now an establishment like this that has those options for us.
The menu at Nirvana changes every day, using what's fresh and available. There are staple items like the sushi and falafel and freshly squeezed juices. There are also raw desserts like macaroons and these chilled treats.
It's just cashews blended up, freshly squeezed key limes, coconut butter, and agave syrup. Blended, poured into molds, and there you have it.
Jonas says business has been booming over the last few weeks and quadrupled on the second day they were open. Jonas and his employees have been working long hours, even up to 17 hours a day at the start. Everything in the resto bar is organic apart from the key limes and pita. Much of it is bought locally from farms or Whole Foods retailers like Aura and True Foods. Susan Makem is an expert on rural issues in Canada. According to her, the return to local food is partly because farmers are dying.
We're at a crisis point, which is another reason why I think this movement is growing, because it's at a crisis point in that we're losing the generations who knew how to farm, who knew how to grow food, and we need to capture and reclaim that knowledge. And so anything that's scarce is valuable.
Makem says by supporting businesses like Nirvana who supply locally farmed food, we are also encouraging more environmentally friendly farming.
Nirvana is environmentally conscious in more than just the restaurant. These low-flow taps in the women's washroom flow at 33% less than regular taps. The toilets are low flush, and these doors are finished with linseed oil from a Fredericton-based company. They also have a beeswax stain, which is helpful for people with allergies. Even the paper towel is non-chlorinated in order to make it safer for compost. For STU Journalism, I'm Alex Kress.
Pierogies, borscht, and gingerbread cookies are just a few of the things you can get at the old-fashioned meat delicatessen. It's a Polish deli in Calgary. And as our Anna Ferencevich tells us, there's a lot more to Calgary's Polish community than just kielbasa.
You know you're in a Polish home when there's some delicious pierogi, or as Canadians call them, pierogies on the stove. And if it's not the pierogies, it's a big bowl of beet soup, also known as borscht. Today, there are more than 50,000 Poles in Calgary, and that makes it one of the largest Polish communities in the country. And when they're hungry for traditional food, this is where they come. The old-fashioned meat delicatessen has been serving customers for more than 18 years. It was opened by Mieczysław Skałka, who came to Canada from Lublin, Poland. While the store has many Polish goodies to offer, the one thing that disappears from the racks the fastest is the homemade Polish sausage, or swojska kiełbasa.
Bazujemy na typowych polskich recepturach. Nie używamy żadnych substytutów, żadnych dodatków, tylko typowe polskie receptury. Mięso, przyprawy i to wszystko. Polska kiełbasa, która jest w trakcie wędzenia w tej chwili.
A jak długo ta kiełbasa się tak będzie wędziła?
Około 4-5 godzin. Gdzieś koło 3 zapraszam na degustację.
Polish food may be rich and sweet, but Polish history and its culture isn't all about the honey. Poles have struggled through centuries of war and persecution to preserve their identity and custom. Wanda Bielecka is an 85-year-old Polish Calgarian. Less than 13 years after this photo was taken, when she was just a teenager, she fought in the resistance in Warsaw.
Przede wszystkim moja mamusia zginęła w powstaniu. Ja byłam bardzo młoda dziewczyna. Mój brat zginął w powstaniu. Jednego dnia moja mamusia, drugi dzień mój brat.
But 12 months ago, Wanda and many other Poles suffered another tragedy, the worst since the war. The President of Poland, his wife, and almost 100 other Poles died when their plane crashed in Russia. They were on their way to pay their respects to the thousands of Poles killed there in a wartime massacre. It was heartbreaking for Poles in Canada and all over the world.
Bo jednak zginęło bardzo dużo cenionych ludzi w Polsce. Cenionych i które kochali Polskę, tak samo jak i inni.
It brought the Polish people together, but that didn't last long. Poles love to disagree. There's an old Polish saying, put 2 Poles in a room and you're bound to come up with 3 different opinions. It's enough to make anyone want to drink. This can also describe the current state of affairs in Calgary's Polish community, especially when it comes to local church politics and religion.
The crash actually put us together, and very soon we forget about it. But there are different issues like gain for the power, who is the president, who is not, and who wants to be. But again, that's very small percentage of our community.
If there's one thing Poles agree on, it's the importance of their culture, whether it's dancing, writing and literature, or even the food.
Polskie potrawy zawsze u mnie są na stole i dzieci lubią i przez 50 lat polska kuchnia u mnie jest ciągle.
And food is what the deli is all about.
Po prostu z tym zamiarem otworzyliśmy żono sklep, właśnie żeby podtrzymywać polską tradycję. I myślę, że to w jakimś stopniu i młodzi się też jakoś więcej mają szansę utrzymać tą naszą tradycję polską. To się bardzo pokazuje przed różnymi świętami takimi związanymi z polską tradycją. Tak jak tydzień temu mieliśmy tłusty czwartek. Dziennie sprzedajemy około 20-30 pączków, na tłusty czwartek sprzedaliśmy prawie 500. Czyli ta tradycja jednak ożywa w tych momentach.
As Easter approaches, Calgary's Polish community is reminded that even though politics isn't something easily agreed on, each Pole, young and old, has cherished memories that have been passed down from generation to generation. For STU Journalism, I'm Anya Frenzovich in Calgary.
The East Coast Music Awards are in Charlottetown this weekend. One of the nominees is a young fiddler from right here in Fredericton. Her name is Kathleen Gore McSorley, and as Stephanie Kelly tells us, she hopes this is just one step in what will be a long career.
Kathleen Gore McSorley has been fine-tuning her career since she was 8 years old. That's when she picked up a fiddle for the first time. Kathleen grew up around Celtic music. She knew she wanted to play from the moment that bow hit the strings.
When I was younger, I'd watch the Grand Ole Opry with my dad every Saturday night. And every time they zoomed in on the fiddle player, I would say I wanted to play the fiddle. So finally, when I was 8, they put me in music lessons, and I haven't stopped since. So.
That was 8 years ago. Since then, Kathleen has performed around the world in Scotland, Ireland, and the United States. She has also won dozens of awards, none as special as the one she hopes to get this weekend. Her latest album has been nominated for an ECMA for Best Roots Traditional Solo Recording of the Year. Kathleen was at school when she found out about her nomination.
I was walking down the hallway to my locker, and my mom came up behind me and she's like, "Kathleen, guess what?" And I turned around and I knew just by the tone that I got the ECMA. And she was like, "You got it, you got the ECMA." I started jumping up and down.
Gory McSorley will be part of the ECMA Gala show. She will be playing with famous fiddlers including Richard Wood, Ashley McIsaac, and Cynthia McLeod. Carolyn Holyoke has been accompanying Kathleen for 3 years. She says Kathleen is successful because of her hard work.
She has such a bright future. So, I mean, she could go on all kinds of directions, but I know she wants to perform, and there's a whole world out there for her. I think she is someone to watch, for sure.
Kathleen has more to worry about than playing and dancing. At only 16 years old, she's still in high school and is under a lot of pressure to balance school and music.
Sometimes it's hard, when I found out about my ECMA nomination 5 days before my physics exam, my final physics exam. So it was kind of like ECMA, E equals MC squared, so sometimes it's hard to keep focused and stuff on the schoolwork, but my parents have a rule where I have to keep my grades up or else I can't, keep going. So, I don't know, it makes it worth it in the end.
Kathleen says she takes her music very seriously and that it's more than just a hobby.
It's just kind of all around me, and it's just my whole life revolves around music and performing, and I love it that way. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Kathleen says she's excited to be heading to the ECMAs in Charlottetown this weekend, and she should be. For many young artists, events like these are the perfect opportunity to kickstart their careers and to bring their talent into the spotlight. For STU Journalism, I'm Stephanie Kelly.
They're called Kicking Back, and that's exactly what this band loves to do, kick back and rock out. They're 5 middle-aged men from the Moncton area. Samantha McGee went to their professional debut in Minto.
Well, it's never too late to be what you could have been, and the men of Kicking Back are proof of that. They're all in their late 40s, early 50s, and they're finally finding the time to start a band together, just like they've always wanted. Kicking Back is setting up for their first paying gig. They've been working to get to this point now for over a year. Paul Cormier is the lead singer and guitarist. He also works the night shift at a trucking warehouse. Junior is Paul's younger brother. He has a full-time job at a factory that makes gambling machines. Henry is Paul's cousin, and he recently moved back home from Calgary. Jake plays guitar and wants to be a professional musician, and have always played in bands, and Paul says they came together at just the right time.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. There's not enough words. Because I never thought I'd really be doing this again, especially at this age, right? Yeah. But it's awesome. It's fun. We're having a lot of fun, and we just want to bring it to whoever wants to come and hear us.
The band usually rehearses about once a week in Paul and Linda's basement in their home in Irishtown.
My husband, you owe me $3?
Yes, ma'am.
Paul's wife, Linda, sometimes joins the band to sing a number or two during their shows. She also handles the money and the bookings. Tonight, the band is playing at the Minto Seniors Club. People have arrived almost an hour early to see them play. Live music is the highlight of their week.
It's been a while since we've been able to go out and put our hair down because we're working day and night to make ends meet. And so this is the first opportunity we've had in, I'd say, probably since November or October to get out. So we're enjoying ourselves. How about that? Yeah.
The members of Kickin' Back are a bit nervous. The regular band here is popular and plays a similar style of music. But as the night goes on, it's obvious the crowd is enjoying them too.
They like them better than some, and they like them as well as others. Oh, that's good. Yeah, so they're doing very well. And that's what I've heard from the people that are here.
As over 100 Mintonians danced until about midnight, each member of the band ended up making roughly $100 each. But that wasn't the only reward, says Paul. He says he's just happy to hear all the positive responses and grateful that he was able to spend time with his family.
It's very important. We get along pretty good, like, for the most part. I mean, for the most part. We're not professionals, and we don't pretend to be. We're just having fun and hope, like I said, hope we can bring it on to whoever wants to come and listen to us and have a good time. Like.
Today is a big day for Paul in more ways than one. He's turning 49. He's obviously proud of how the night went, and he believes that it's never too late to kick up your feet, have fun, and go after a dream.
After the break, we have Old Clothes, New Ink, and OMG. Ever hear of the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure? Well, some Fredericton women are putting that theory to the test. Alyssa Moser is at Gallery Connection, where they're doing what's called a swap and shop. Alyssa?
Yes, Viola. There's about 30 women here, and they're calling it the Goddess Swap and Shop. Here's how it works. Women who are interested give their closet a good spring cleaning and dig out the good stuff that they either don't want or don't wear anymore. Then they bring it here, where they can trade it for a goodie from somebody else's closet. What's left over is given to the Women's Homeless Shelter. This particular event was hosted by Lisa Wilby. She's the owner of a cafe just down the street.
I mean, again, it's springtime. People are looking to purge their closet, so why not sort of get rid of some of the stuff they love, and then someone else can bring it home, so everybody gets to recycle.
Now, Viola, this is one of many signs that recycled clothing is becoming more of a trend in Fredericton. Only a few blocks away, there's the vintage store Renew, and there's lovely Betty in Marysville. Now, it seems that Fredericton is catching on that a trend that has been growing since at least the 90s. The trend is exploding on the internet. It's in big cities like Vancouver and New York. It's all over the place. Not only is recycled clothing a good way to reduce your carbon footprint, but it is also a great way to develop your own style. I don't know about you, Viola, but I think my closet definitely needs a good spring cleaning.
Well, it's almost time for some spring cleaning, Alyssa.
The weather is getting warmer, and people are beginning to peel off those layers of winter clothing. For many, this means getting to show off a new tattoo. But as Leanne Osmond tells us, getting tattoos can be addictive.
There's something Graham Campbell likes more than a clean dunk, and that's getting a new tattoo. The 22-year-old has been getting tattoos since he was 16. The first was designed by a friend who was killed by a drunk driver. Campbell now considers that tattoo a tribute.
A lot of people kind of asked me like what it was or what it was meant to signify. It was meant to be like kind of an angel, but since he passed away, kind of like an angel of death.
Because of his tattoos, Campbell often gets stared at and even snickered at.
I don't really expect people to see me, and I mean, I know how I look, so if people walk by me and they smirk or they make like rush judgments about me, that's up to them. That's something that they can do. They can hold that for themselves, but I'm just an open, free-loving person who's really liberal. I'm not going to like judge someone who judges me.
Tattoos have been around for 10,000 years, but they've only really been popular in North America for the last 20. TV shows like LA Ink have boosted their popularity and even made them a bit glamorous. However, in some cultures, tattoos carry a very negative stigma. In Japan, tattoos are strongly linked with organized crime, and street gangs around the world use tattoos to signify different criminal acts, like a teardrop for murder.
For many people, getting a tattoo is a form of self-expression. But for some, once they start expressing themselves this way, they don't want to stop.
I think it's a good thing if you're going to the right people, because you are working with, blood. I think being addicted to tattooing isn't a bad thing, but you just gotta do your research and find a good artist who's capable of doing what you want them to do.
Tattoo culture has evolved in the last century. Many artists have technical and fine arts training, and the materials they use have been refined. So far, Graham has gotten work done on both arms and legs. As soon as he has the money, he plans to get more. Campbell says that tattoos are addictive for many reasons.
I think in certain places or certain tattoo shops, the atmosphere is definitely a really big one for me. I know personally, like a lot of my friends hang out at the tattoo shop, so it's kind of a place where you can go hang out. You know, even if you don't have a lot of money, you can sometimes get like a little bit of work done. For me, it's just atmosphere, and the feeling of getting a tattoo is really kind of addictive itself too.
Research shows that about 1/3 of people between the ages of 18 and 25 have at least one tattoo. A study done by the Mayo Clinic suggests that even though tattoos are common, they still come with risks. Tattoos can potentially cause various skin infections, allergic reaction to dyes, and certain blood-borne diseases such as hepatitis C. For STU Journalism, I'm Leanne Osmond.
OMG, did you know that LOL, which you know means laugh out loud, made it into the Oxford English Dictionary?
But it's not the only word. Brianna James has more on Internet English.
OMG, which of course means oh my god. Did you know that opposition leader Michael Ignatieff tweeted Prime Minister Harper instead of meeting with him? Most people would have LOL'd at that. But today, more and more people are applying social media's lingo to everyday language.
The English language is a live body that is constantly changing with age, and right now it's in the middle of its internet chapter. OMG, LOL, unfriend, tweet-ups, and boyfriend, also known as BF, have all been added to the Oxford English Dictionary in the last 2 years. The popular nature of these words has made an impact. Tracy House, a third-year International Relations and Economics with a business option major, has applied these abbreviations to her day-to-day life.
I think it's a sign of the times. Like, I understand that, others would say that it's degrading the English language and things like that. But it's the society today we live in. We live in the world of shorthand. My mom still typed you, like the letter U, to mean you as a person. So I think it's just, people, society is constantly moving. Things need to be said quickly.
Today's society is in FF, or fast forward. Some experts say the English language has adapted cleverly.
Everyone seems to recognize them. Most people, OMG, LOL, all those things, use them all the time, right? And so they're becoming mainstream in some ways, but I think it's still a little hard to use a lot of abbreviations like that in real face-to-face interaction.
Instead of talking about your boyfriend or girlfriend, many people are talking about their BF and GFs. People can also unfriend people they don't like on Facebook and apply that to everyday language. It is also common to hear someone friend another person on Facebook. OMG, many couples also define their relationship by Facebook and if they are Facebook official. Even the term social media has been shortened to SM. Because of this, many students have applied this altered language to their IRL, in real life, and they aren't JKing, just kidding. This makes grammar and spelling a real HA, headache, for professors.
You'd have to be pretty ignorant to your professor to put in LOL, OMG, WTF, like anything like that. Like, I think you have to, when you're writing papers to professors, you need to have a level of respect.
ETW, by the way, according to other experts, this is a good thing, and NP, no problem. Verbs and adjectives are created for these words, and people apply them correctly.
Regardless of verbal or oral language, we've really developed, again, a whole new written language in a way that so many of us weren't writing before. We write, it seems, all day long now. Young people are texting constantly. At a time when perhaps they would never write outside of the classroom.
Others say it is negative because the abbreviations have taken away from the art of the English language. For STU Journalism, I'm Brianna James.
Thanks for watching, everyone, and for tuning in all year.
We're done for the summer, but check out the new group of basement tapers in the fall.
Bye.
Bye.